able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him in Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they'd done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant George Henry William Piper. George Henry William Piper was born in Hornsey, London in 1896. His parents, George and Emma, moved the family to Menzies, a town in the Goldfields region of Western Australia, when George was about 7 years old. George attended the Roman Catholic school in Menzies before the family moved to Perth, where George found work as an agricultural labourer. George Piper served with the militia unit, the 11th Australian Garrison Artillery, at Fort Forrest, a coastal defence installation in Fremantle. After the outbreak of the First World War, he volunteered for service in the Australian Imperial Force in March 1915. He began his training at Black Boy Hill Camp, and his previous military service meant that he was quickly promoted to the rank of sergeant. He joined the 28th Australian Infantry Battalion. In June 1915, Piper and the 28th Battalion sailed from Fremantle on board the transport ship Ascanius. Arriving in Egypt, the unit continued training before sailing in early September for Gallipoli. Piper had been on the peninsula for a little over 2 weeks when he was struck by shrapnel in his left leg and badly wounded. He was evacuated to a hospital ship at first and then to a military hospital at Mudros on the island of Lemnos. In January 1916, he returned to Egypt and began training to regain his fitness. In early March, he returned to the 28th Battalion, which had returned to Egypt after the failure of the Gallipoli campaign. In mid-March, the battalion sailed from Alexandria to Marseille in southern France. From there, the men were taken by train to northern France. In April, the 28th Battalion moved to an area outside the French city of Armentières. In 1916, the main British attacks were carried out along the Somme River valley to the south. This northern area was comparatively quieter than the Somme and was known as the nursery sector. Australian battalions were rotated through this nursery in order to learn tactics of trench warfare. In early May, Piper and the men of the 28th Battalion spent nearly 2 weeks in the frontline trenches. Despite its name, the nursery sector was an active battlefield. German artillery intermittently shelled the Australian trenches with high explosive shrapnel, gas, and other shells. There was also the ever-present danger of snipers. The battalion's war diary notes that on one day, 250 German shells landed on the unit's trenches. Piper's unit had returned to billets behind the lines when he was selected to be part of a working party in the trenches. His duties could have included repair work on trenches, carrying supplies forward, and evacuating wounded soldiers back to the casualty clearing stations. On the 21st of May 1916, he and the working party were marching towards the front when they were bombed by a German aeroplane. Piper was killed instantly, along with 2 other men from the battalion, Private Frank Keels and Private Walter Williams. 6 other men were wounded. Piper was 20 years old. George Piper was buried in Erkenheim-Lys Churchyard Extension in Armentières in northern France. Piper was survived by his parents and his other brother Edgar, who served in the 16th Battalion and was badly wounded on Gallipoli, suffering a broken arm and wounded leg. Edgar returned to Australia in early 1916. Sergeant George Henry William Piper is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is one, but many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant George Henry William Piper, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.